I woke up gasping, my hands clutching at my throat where water should have been filling my lungs, but there was no water. Just air, sweet, precious air, and the familiar ceiling of our bedroom staring back at me. Our bedroom. The bedroom I'd shared with Marcus for 8 years. The bedroom I'd died in, or rather, the bedroom I'd been in before he suggested that romantic sunset cruise that ended with me at the bottom of Lake Morrison. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I grabbed it with shaking hands, already knowing what I'd see, but needing confirmation anyway. March 15th, 2023. 6 months before my death. 6 months before my 32nd birthday. Before the cruise. Before Marcus would stand on that boat and watch me drown with those cold, calculating eyes I'd been too blind to see clearly until the water closed over my head. I sat up slowly, my heart hammering. This wasn't possible. This couldn't be real. But the evidence was everywhere, in the cheaper furniture we'd replaced 2 months ago, in the absence of the scar on my left hand from the accident with the kitchen knife in June, in the sound of Marcus's shower running in the bathroom. Marcus, who had married me for my life insurance policy. Marcus, who had spent 8 years playing the devoted husband while secretly drowning in gambling debts. Marcus, who had upped my life insurance to $2 million last year, citing protection for our future family, while knowing he'd never planned to have children with me. The bathroom door opened, and he emerged in a cloud of steam, towel around his waist, that perfect smile on his perfect face. The face I'd loved, the face I'd trusted. "Morning, sleepyhead," he said, coming over to kiss my forehead. His lips felt like ice. "You okay? You look pale." I forced myself to smile, to act normal, even though every cell in my body screamed to pull away. "Just a bad dream." "Want to talk about it?" The concern in his voice would have seemed genuine to the old me. Now I could see the impatience underneath, the slight tightening around his eyes. He had somewhere to be, someone to meet, probably his bookie or maybe his mistress, Sheila from his office, who'd sent a lovely arrangement to my funeral. "No, I'm fine," I said. "You have that early meeting, right?" Relief flooded his features. "Yeah, should be back by lunch. Love you." "Love you too." The words tasted like ash, but I said them because I needed time. I needed to think. I needed to plan. As soon as his car pulled out of the driveway, I grabbed my laptop and started searching. The insurance policy. I needed to know if it was already in place. My hands trembled as I logged into our financial accounts I'd barely paid attention to in my first life, trusting Marcus to handle everything. There it was, $2 million, Northwestern Mutual, effective January 2023. Beneficiary, Marcus Chen, spouse. I remembered this now. He'd said it was a smart financial move, that his company offered a discount on spousal policies, that it showed how much he loved me and wanted to protect our future. I'd signed the papers without reading them, flattered by his concern. In my previous life, I'd died on September 15th, 2023, 6 months from now. It would be ruled an accident, tragic drowning during a romantic cruise. Marcus would play the grieving widower perfectly. He'd collect the money, pay off his debts, and probably marry Sheila within a year. But this time, things would be different. This time, I had something he didn't. Knowledge. 6 months of knowledge. I knew every move he'd make, every lie he'd tell, every step of his plan. And I had something else. Something I'd done in a moment of paranoia that my old self had dismissed as silly. 6 months ago, which was actually yesterday for me in this timeline, I'd been having lunch with my best friend Rachel when she'd mentioned her own insurance policy. "You know what's funny?" she'd said, laughing over her wine. "My policy still lists my ex-husband as beneficiary. I keep meaning to change it, but honestly, the paperwork seems like such a hassle." That conversation had planted a seed. Not suspicion exactly. I'd loved Marcus, trusted him completely. But I was meticulous by nature, a habit from my career as a financial analyst. That evening, I'd reviewed all our policies just to ensure everything was in order. And something had bothered me. A small thing, barely worth noticing. Marcus had seemed overly interested in the insurance policies lately. He'd asked several times if I'd reviewed them, if everything was set up properly. At the time, I'd thought he was just being responsible. But that night, sitting at my computer with Rachel's words echoing in my head, I'd felt the tiniest prickle of unease. Marcus had been distant lately, working late more often. His phone was always face down on tables. I'd told myself I was being paranoid, but I'd also quietly, without telling him, changed the beneficiary on my policy. I'd changed it to my mother. In my first life, I'd forgotten about it completely. The change had been processed, but I'd never told Marcus, never thought about it again. And then I died. And Marcus had been so sure he'd get the money. I could still see the confidence in his eyes as he'd watched me go under, could still remember the confusion at my funeral when the insurance company had contacted my mother instead of him. The last thing I'd seen before everything went dark a second time was Marcus's face, pale with shock and rage as he'd realized his plan had failed. Now, sitting in our bedroom 6 months in the past, I smiled. He didn't know. In this timeline, I'd just made that change yesterday. Well, 6 months ago from his perspective. But yesterday for me. The paperwork was filed. The beneficiary was changed. And Marcus had no idea. But I couldn't just let things play out the same way. I couldn't die again, even knowing the insurance money would go to my mother. I'd been given a second chance, and I was going to use it. I was going to destroy Marcus Chen. But more than that, I was going to make sure he destroyed himself. Over the next few days, I played the perfect wife. I smiled at Marcus's lies, laughed at his jokes, kissed him goodbye each morning, all while I watched, all while I learned. I'd been blind before, but now I saw everything. The way he'd check his phone obsessively when he thought I wasn't looking. The expensive cologne he only wore on late work nights. The way his jaw tightened whenever I mentioned planning for our future. I started going through his things carefully when he was out. I found the burner phone taped under his desk drawer, messages to Sheila filled with promises of soon, baby, soon, and just a few more months. I found the betting slips, the casino receipts, the letters from creditors. Marcus owed nearly $300,000 to some very unpleasant people. Letters that threatened, that implied violence. No wonder he'd been desperate. And I found the draft email on his laptop saved but never sent to a boat rental company on Lake Morrison. He'd been planning this for months. I photographed everything. I documented everything. I created a cloud storage account he didn't know about and uploaded every piece of evidence. But I didn't confront him, not yet. Instead, I made a phone call. Rachel, hey, do you have time for lunch today? I need to talk to you about something. Rachel Martinez had been my best friend since college. She was a family law attorney, sharp as a knife and twice as dangerous when she needed to be. In my first life, she'd been devastated by my death, had actually suspected Marcus but had no proof. This time, I was going to give her all the proof she needed. We met at our usual spot, a quiet Italian restaurant downtown. Rachel took one look at my face and set down her menu. Okay, what's wrong? I'd prepared for this moment, rehearsed what I'd say. But sitting across from her, seeing the genuine concern in her eyes, the words caught in my throat. I think Marcus is trying to kill me. The restaurant noise seemed to fade. Rachel's expression shifted from concern to sharp focus in an instant. Tell me everything. I did. Not about the rebirth, that I kept to myself, knowing how crazy it would sound. But I told her about the insurance policy, about the evidence I'd found, about my suspicions. I framed it as intuition, as pieces falling into place, as a wife finally seeing the signs she'd been ignoring. Rachel listened without interrupting, her lawyer brain clearly cataloging every detail. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. You have copies of everything? Yes, cloud storage encrypted. Good, she leaned forward. Here's what we're going to do. First, you're going to forward me access to that storage. Second, we're going to hire a private investigator to document his affair and his gambling. Third, you're going to keep acting completely normal until we have everything we need. I'm not leaving him yet, I said. I want him to think he's winning. Rachel studied my face. What are you planning, Emma? I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. I'm going to let him try. Absolutely not. Rachel's voice was sharp. Emma, if you really think he's planning to kill you, he won't succeed, I said calmly. But he needs to try. I need him to show his hand completely, Rachel. I need him to commit. Otherwise, it's just a cheating husband with gambling debts. That's not enough. That's insane. I've already changed the insurance beneficiary, I interrupted. He doesn't know, but my mother is listed now. Even if something happens to me, he gets nothing. But I need more than that. I need him to destroy himself so completely that he can never recover. Rachel stared at me like she'd never seen me before. Maybe she hadn't. The old Emma had been soft, trusting, gentle. That Emma had drowned in Lake Morrison. This Emma was something different. What happened to you? Rachel asked quietly. I woke up, I said simply. She was quiet for another moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, but we do this carefully. We do this smart. And the moment I think you're in real danger, we pull the plug and go to the police. Agreed? Agreed. We shook on it like we were sealing a business deal. In a way, we were. The business of revenge. The private investigator Rachel recommended was a woman named June Torres, ex-FBI, with a reputation for being both discreet and thorough. She came to our house while Marcus was at work, looked around with sharp, assessing eyes, and listened to my story with the same calm professionalism she might give to a weather report. I can work with this, she said when I finished. Your husband is sloppy. Emotional affairs usually are. I'll have you a full dossier within 2 weeks. She delivered in 10 days. The folder she handed me was thick, filled with photographs, bank statements, phone records, and GPS tracking data. Marcus with Sheila at hotels, Marcus at the casino, Marcus meeting with his bookie, a man with a criminal record that included assault and extortion. But the most damning thing was a recording June had obtained through means she politely declined to explain. Marcus and Sheila in his car parked outside her apartment. Just a few more months, baby. The insurance policy is solid, $2 million. We pay off my debts, keep the rest, start fresh in California like we planned. Sheila's voice, cautious. You're sure about this? I mean, it's not just insurance fraud, Marcus. You're talking about... She goes on that cruise. There's an accident, and we're free. Trust me. I've planned everything. My hands shook as I listened. Hearing it like this, in his voice, with that casual certainty, it made it real in a way my memories hadn't. He'd really meant to kill me. He'd really thought it through. Good, I said, my voice steady despite my trembling hands. This is good. June raised an eyebrow. Most people aren't that calm when they find out their spouse is planning their murder. Most people haven't spent as much time as I have imagining their revenge. Over the following weeks, I became a ghost in my own life. I haunted the edges of Marcus's existence, watching, documenting, waiting. He had no idea I knew. To him, I was still Emma, his sweet, trusting wife, working her analyst job and coming home each night with a smile. I watched him book the cruise. June had tapped his computer, so I saw the confirmation email for September 15th. Sunset romance package for 2 on Lake Morrison. He told me about it over dinner, his performance perfect. I thought we could use a romantic getaway, he said, reaching across the table to take my hand. Just you and me, watching the sunset from the water. Doesn't that sound perfect? It sounds wonderful, I said, and meant it. Because it would be wonderful, just not for him. In the meantime, I had my own preparations to make. I went to see my mother, something I'd been doing more frequently since the rebirth. Susan Chen had been devastated by my death in the first timeline. I'd watched from somewhere beyond, seen her collapse at my funeral, seen the way it aged her 10 years overnight. This time, I was going to make sure she not only survived, but thrived. Emma, honey, this is a surprise, she said when I showed up at her door on a Saturday morning. Marcus didn't come with you? He's golfing with clients, I lied smoothly. He was actually at a hotel with Sheila, but my mother didn't need to know that yet. I wanted to talk to you about something. We settled in her kitchen with tea, and I chose my words carefully. Mom, I need to tell you something, and I need you to trust me, even if it sounds crazy. Her face shifted to concern. What's wrong? I've made some changes to my life insurance policy. You're now the beneficiary. She blinked. What? Emma, that should be Marcus. You're married. I know what it should be, I interrupted. But I have my reasons. I need you to promise me something. If anything happens to me, anything at all, you contact Rachel immediately. She has instructions. And you don't give Marcus a single penny of that money. Emma, you're scaring me. What's going on? I reached across the table and took her hand. I can't explain everything right now, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that? She searched my face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You're my daughter. Of course I trust you. Good. There's one more thing. I pulled out an envelope and handed it to her. This has information about some investments I want you to make. The instructions are very specific. Follow them exactly, down to the dates. Can you do that for me? The envelope contained stock tips, cryptocurrency investments, startup, opportunities, all the things I'd learned about in my first life. The success stories of 2023 and early 2024 that I could remember. I was giving my mother a roadmap to wealth. Emma, I don't understand. You will, I promised. Just trust me, please. She agreed, though I could see the confusion and worry in her eyes. But she'd follow through. My mother was nothing if not meticulous. June continued her surveillance. By August, we had enough evidence to put Marcus away for conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and a dozen other charges. Rachel had compiled it all into a legal brief that was, in her words, a prosecutor's wet dream. But I still wasn't ready to move. Emma, the cruise is in 3 weeks, Rachel said during one of our weekly lunch meetings. We need to go to the police now. Not yet. You're not actually planning to get on that boat with him. I smiled. What kind of wife would I be if I missed our romantic anniversary cruise? A living one, Rachel snapped. This has gone far enough. I won't let you... Rachel! I reached across the table and gripped her wrist. I need you to trust me. I know what I'm doing. Do you? She pulled her hand back, frustration evident in every line of her body. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're planning to let your husband attempt to murder you just to... What? Prove a point? Get better evidence? It's insane. It's necessary, I said calmly. Everything is in place. June will be on the lake. You'll have people positioned. And I'll have this. I pulled a small device from my purse. Waterproof GPS tracker, emergency beacon, and recording device all in one, military grade. I'll be wearing it under my clothes. And if something goes wrong? It won't. But I could see she wasn't convinced. Hell, I wasn't entirely convinced. But I'd lived through this once already. I knew how it played out, knew the exact moment Marcus would make his move, knew the look in his eyes, when he'd think he'd won. This time, I was going to make sure everyone else saw it too. The night before the cruise, Marcus was almost giddy. He thought he was 12 hours away from freedom, from money, from Sheila and his new life. He made love to me that night with what I suppose he thought was appropriate farewell sentiment. I stared at the ceiling and counted down the hours. Morning came bright and clear, perfect weather for a romantic cruise, perfect weather for murder. Marcus loaded our bags into the car, light bags since we were supposedly only going for an evening trip. He kept checking his phone, nervous energy making him twitchy. You okay? I asked innocently. Just excited, he said, flashing that perfect smile. It's been too long since we did something like this. The drive to Lake Morrison took 45 minutes. Marcus kept up a steady stream of chatter, reminiscing about our relationship, talking about our future. I wondered if he felt any guilt at all, or if it had always been this easy for him to lie. The boat rental company was small, family-owned, the same one Marcus had contacted months ago in that draft email. The owner, a weathered man named Bill, helped us load onto a small yacht, nice enough for a romantic evening, small enough that an accident would be plausible. Beautiful day for it, Bill said cheerfully. You two have fun. Got your life jackets? Right here. Marcus said, holding up 2 orange vests. I remembered this moment. In my first life, I'd put on the life jacket immediately. This time, I held it loosely, waiting. We motored out onto the lake, the shore receding behind us. The sun was starting its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. It really was beautiful. Marcus anchored us in a spot far from other boats, in deep water where the lake bottom dropped away to over 200 feet. Good for hiding bodies, bad for rescue. Want some champagne? He asked, pulling out a Sipanes bottle. I brought your favorite. Sure. He poured 2 glasses. I watched him carefully, but he didn't drug mine. He'd never planned to. The drugs would have shown up in an autopsy. No, his plan was simpler, cruder. We toasted to our love, to our future, to all his beautiful lies. I sipped the champagne and watched the sun sink lower. It happened when I was standing at the rail, looking out at the water. Marcus came up behind me close enough that I could feel his breath on my neck. Emma, he said softly. I'm sorry. And then he shoved. I'd been ready for it, but the force still surprised me. He put his whole body into it, desperate strength born of desperation and greed. I tumbled over the rail and hit the water hard. The cold was shocking, even though I'd known it was coming. I went under, the weight of my clothes pulling me down, and for one terrible moment, I was back in my first death. Water filling my lungs, Marcus's face the last thing I saw, but this time was different. This time I fought. I kicked hard, broke the surface, gasped for air. I could see Marcus on the boat, see him looking around frantically, probably checking for other boats, for witnesses. Marcus, I screamed. Help, Marcus, help me. He looked down at me with those cold eyes. For a moment, I thought I saw something, regret maybe, or guilt. But then it was gone, replaced by calculation. He picked up the life jacket, the one he'd told Bill we had, the one that was supposed to save me, and he threw it in the opposite direction. Swim for it, Emma, he called out, his voice carrying across the water. I'll get the boat. But he didn't move to start the engine. He just stood there, watching. I made a show of struggling, of going under once, twice. I let him think it was working, let him think I was drowning. And then I triggered the emergency beacon. The response was faster than I'd expected. June had coordinated with the Coast Guard, had people on standby within 3 minutes. I heard the sound of motors approaching. I saw Marcus's face change as he realized what was happening. Saw panic replace satisfaction. He scrambled for the boat controls, but it was too late. 2 Coast Guard boats converged on our position, along with June's private vessel. I was pulled from the water by strong hands, wrapped in thermal blankets, my body shaking with cold and adrenaline. Mrs. Chen, are you all right? The Coast Guard officer was young, concerned. My husband, I gasped out. He pushed me. He threw the life jacket away. He was trying to... I didn't have to finish. They could see Marcus on the boat, see the life jacket floating 30 yards in the wrong direction, see the guilty panic on his face. Sir, stay where you are, one of the officers called out to Marcus. We're boarding your vessel. I watched from June's boat as they took Marcus into custody. Watched as they read him his rights. Watched as his perfect plan crumbled around him. Looked at me once across the water. Our eyes met, and in that moment, I saw him understand. Not just that I'd survived, but that I'd known. That I'd let him try. That I'd wanted him to commit. Emma, he started, but they were already taking him away. June wrapped another blanket around my shoulders. You okay? Better than okay, I said and started to laugh. Because the best part hadn't even happened yet. The attempted murder trial was swift and brutal. With the Coast Guard testimony, the video evidence from June's surveillance, the recordings of Marcus and Sheila, and the financial evidence of his motive, the prosecution had an airtight case. Rachel destroyed him on the stand, her cross-examination so thorough that even his own lawyer looked uncomfortable. She walked the jury through every lie, every debt, every moment of his calculated plan to kill me for money. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts, but the real satisfaction came a week after the verdict when the insurance company formally processed my claim. See, Marcus had been so confident in his plan that he'd never actually checked the beneficiary designation after that first policy setup. He'd assumed it was still him. He'd planned everything around that assumption. The look on his face when his lawyer informed him that the $2 million was going to my mother was something I wished I could have photographed. Apparently, he'd actually laughed at first, thinking it was a mistake. Then, when he realized it wasn't, he'd gone completely silent. He'd killed our marriage, destroyed his own life, and earned himself a 25 to life sentence for attempted murder, all for money he was never going to see. Sheila, for her part, cut a deal. She testified against Marcus in exchange for a reduced sentence on her conspiracy charges. Last I heard, she got 3 years and was writing a tell-all book about dating a would-be murderer. I stood in the courthouse lobby after the sentencing, Rachel beside me, and felt the weight of 6 months, no, 8 years, finally lift from my shoulders. "You did it," Rachel said quietly. "You actually did it." "We did it," I corrected. She shook her head. "No, Emma, this was all you. I just helped you build the cage. You're the one who got him to walk into it." My mother was waiting outside, and when she saw me, she burst into tears. I hugged her tight, breathing in her familiar perfume, grateful beyond words that this time she wasn't mourning me. "I followed your investment advice," she whispered. "Emma, I don't know how you knew, but we need to talk." I pulled back and saw the wonder in her eyes. "Good returns?" "I've made $300,000 in 4 months." I smiled. "That's just the beginning, Mom. Trust me." Over the next year, my life transformed in ways that even I, with my future knowledge, hadn't fully anticipated. The insurance money went to my mother as planned, but she split it with me despite my protests. "You earned this," she said firmly. "And you survived him, and besides, with the returns on those investments you had me make, I have more money than I know what to do with." She'd followed my instructions perfectly. The cryptocurrency investments had paid off spectacularly. The tech startup stock I'd told her to buy had tripled. She was well on her way to being a millionaire in her own right. I used my portion to start over. New apartment, new city, new life. I left the financial analyst job, I'd never really loved it anyway, and went back to school for what I'd always wanted to do, write. Turns out surviving your own murder attempt gives you a lot of material. I wrote a book about financial abuse, about the warning signs of dangerous relationships, about trusting your instincts. It was part memoir, part self-help, and it struck a chord. The book hit the bestseller list within a month of publication. I went on talk shows, gave lectures, became an advocate for domestic violence survivors. People would come up to me after speaking events, tears in their eyes, thanking me for giving them the courage to leave their own Marcus. Each time I thought about the old Emma, the one who died without ever seeing it coming, I was living the life she never got to have, and I was determined to make it count. Rachel and I became even closer, if that was possible. She eventually told me that she'd suspected Marcus even in my first life, but had never been able to prove anything. "When you first told me you thought he was trying to kill you, I almost cried with relief," she admitted over drinks one night. "I thought I was going crazy, seeing shadows where there was nothing, but you saw it too." I couldn't tell her the whole truth, that I'd literally lived through it once before. But I could let her know how much her support had meant. "You saved my life," I said simply. I couldn't have done any of this without you." "Please," she scoffed. "You were a force of nature. I just pointed you in the right direction and tried to keep you from getting killed in the process." June Torres became a friend too, in her own way. She'd been so impressed with how the case turned out that she asked if she could use it as a case study for training other investigators. "You let him show his whole hand," she said admiringly. "That took guts and brains. Most people would have run the second they suspected." "Most people don't have the advantages I had," I said carefully. She gave me a shrewd look but didn't push. June was good at reading people, and I think she knew there was more to my story than I was telling. But she respected the boundaries. As for Marcus, he became a cautionary tale. His case was covered extensively in the media. The handsome husband who'd tried to kill his wife for insurance money, only to discover she'd outsmarted him months before. Legal blogs analyzed the case. True, crime podcasts dissected every detail. I was offered substantial sums for exclusive interviews, but I turned them all down. I'd said everything I needed to say in my book. I had no interest in giving Marcus any more of my time or energy. He tried to contact me from prison exactly once, a letter that arrived 18 months after his sentencing. I held it in my hands for a long time, feeling the weight of it, wondering what he could possibly have to say. In the end, I burned it without reading it. Whatever he wanted, forgiveness, explanation, one last manipulation, I didn't need to hear it. That chapter of my life was closed. I started dating again eventually, though I was cautious about it. Trust didn't come easily anymore. But I met someone, a kind, patient man named David who was a veterinarian and had never so much as had a parking ticket. I want you to know, I told him on our 5th date, I have a complicated past. He nodded seriously. I know, I read your book. And you still want to see me? Emma, you survived something that would have destroyed most people. You're not broken. You're not damaged. You're strong as hell and twice as smart. Of course I want to see you. We took it slow. I was paranoid about every little thing at first. Did he ask about my finances too much? Was he being too perfect? Was this all an act? But David was patient. He let me investigate him, run background checks, meet his family, talk to his ex-wife. They'd divorced amicably 3 years ago and remained friends. He understood that trust had to be earned, and he was willing to put in the work. 2 years after Marcus went to prison, David asked me to marry him. I said yes, but with conditions. Separate finances, I said. Prenup. And I'm keeping my life insurance beneficiary as my mother. He didn't even hesitate. Whatever makes you feel safe. That was when I knew he was the real deal. Marcus would have argued, would have made it about him, would have tried to convince me I was being unreasonable. David just wanted me to feel secure. We got married on a beach in Hawaii, small ceremony, just close friends and family. Rachel was my maid of honor. My mother cried happy tears. David's parents welcomed me with open arms. It was everything my first wedding to Marcus hadn't been. Genuine, joyful, built on actual love instead of lies and schemes. On our wedding night, David held me close and said, I'm going to spend every day proving you made the right choice. I know I did, I said. And I meant it. 3 years after the trial, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. I'd gotten good at screening calls, but something made me pick up. Emma Chen? The voice was professional, female. Emma Morrison now, but yes. This is Officer Sarah Vance with the State Correctional Facility. I'm calling to inform you that Marcus Chen has requested a meeting with you through our restorative justice program. My first instinct was to refuse immediately, but then I paused. What does that entail? It would be a supervised meeting in a secure location. The program is designed to help victims find closure and give offenders a chance to take accountability. You're under no obligation to participate. I thought about it for 3 days. Talked to Rachel, talked to David, talked to my therapist. Everyone had the same advice. Only do it if it would help me, not him. In the end, I decided to go. Not for closure. I didn't need that from him. But because I wanted to look Marcus in the eye one more time and show him exactly how well I was doing without him. The meeting was scheduled for a Thursday afternoon. I dressed carefully, not to impress, but to demonstrate. Designer suit, expensive watch, wedding ring that David had saved for months to buy me. The correctional facility was exactly as grim as I'd imagined. Gray walls, fluorescent lights, the smell of industrial cleaner, and despair. I was led through multiple security checkpoints to a small room with a table and 2 chairs. Marcus was already there when I entered. 3 years in prison had changed him. He'd lost weight, gained gray hair. The easy confidence was gone, replaced by something harder, more brittle. He looked up when I walked in, and I saw his eyes widen slightly as he took in my appearance. Emma, he said. His voice was rough, like he didn't use it much. Marcus? I sat down across from him. The guard stepped back, but remained in the room, watching. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then Marcus cleared his throat. Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't. Why did you? I considered the question. Curiosity, mostly. I wanted to see what you could possibly have to say to me. He flinched at that. Good. I wanted to apologize for everything. I know it doesn't change anything, but I needed you to know that I'm sorry. Are you? I leaned forward. Are you worried you tried to kill me, Marcus? Or are you just sorry you got caught? Both, he said, and at least he had the grace to be honest. I was desperate, Emma. The debts, the pressure. Don't. My voice was sharp. Don't try to explain it away. You made a choice. You chose money over my life. You chose to plan my murder, to stand on that boat and watch me drown. Own it. He was quiet for a moment. You're right. I made those choices, and I have to live with them every day. Good. I heard about your book, he said after a pause. And your new marriage. I'm glad you moved on. Moved on? I laughed, and it wasn't a kind sound. Marcus, I didn't move on. I built a completely new life from the ashes of the one you tried to destroy. I'm successful, I'm happy. I'm loved by someone who would never, ever dream of hurting me. I'm living my best life, and you're in here for the next 2 decades thinking about what you lost. His face had gone pale. Emma, do you know what the best part is? I leaned back in my chair, casual, relaxed. The insurance money. The $2 million you killed our marriage for, destroyed your life for. My mother invested it wisely. It's worth over $5 million now. And when she passes, it all comes to me. I watched the information hit him, watched him process what it meant. So, in the end, I continued, I got the money anyway. I got the life. I got everything. And you got a cell in the knowledge that you threw away the only person who actually loved you for absolutely nothing. Marcus's hands were shaking on the table. How did you know? How did you know to change the beneficiary? I smiled. Let's just say I had a feeling. And I've learned to trust my instincts. He stared at me for a long moment, and I could see him trying to figure it out, trying to understand how his perfect plan had fallen apart so completely. He never would. That was my secret to keep. I think we're done here, I said, standing up. Have a nice life, Marcus. What's left of it, anyway. I turned to leave, but his voice stopped me. Emma, wait, please, I need to know. Did you ever really love me? I looked back at him, this man who'd been my husband, who'd shared my bed and my life and my trust. This man who'd decided I was worth more dead than alive. Yes, I said honestly. I loved you completely. That's what makes what you did so unforgivable. I walked out without looking back. The drive home took 2 hours. I called David when I was halfway there. How did it go? He asked. Better than expected. I'll tell you about it when I get home. I'll have dinner ready. Love you. Love you too. I hung up and focused on the road ahead, the sun setting in my rearview mirror. I thought about everything that had happened, about the impossible second chance I'd been given, about the life I'd built from it. I thought about the old Emma, the one who'd died without ever knowing what hit her. I hoped, wherever she was proud of what I'd done with her life. No, my life. This was my life now, my choices, my consequences, my victories. Marcus had tried to write my ending. Instead, I'd written his, and mine was just beginning. 5 years after that final meeting, I was sitting in my home office when my phone rang. My literary agent, Susan, was calling. Emma, you're not going to believe this. Netflix wants to option your story. I blinked. What? Your book. They want to turn it into a limited series. They're talking a 7-figure deal. I leaned back in my chair, processing my book, my story, broadcast to millions of people. Marcus's attempted murder, immortalized on screen for the world to see. Tell them yes, I said, but I want creative control. This story gets told my way. Done. I'll set up the meeting. The series took 2 years to produce. I was involved in every step: casting, writing, directing choices. They hired an actress who looked nothing like me but captured something essential in her performance: the strength wrapped in softness, the steel hidden beneath kindness. The actor who played Marcus was almost too good. He made him charming, sympathetic even, right up until the moment he pushed his wife off that boat. The audience hated him exactly as much as they should. When the series premiered, it became a cultural phenomenon. People binge-watched it in one sitting. Social media exploded with discussions about the warning signs of dangerous relationships, about financial abuse, about trusting your gut. My book jumped back to the top of the bestseller list. I was invited to speak at the United Nations about domestic violence. My mother, now 70 and worth over $8 million thanks to the investments I'd guided her toward, started a foundation for domestic violence survivors. And Marcus, in his prison cell, got to watch his crime played out on screens across the world, his name becoming synonymous with greed and betrayal. I'd heard through the grapevine that he'd requested not to have access to television or news after the first episode aired. Apparently, watching himself portrayed as the villain in his own story was too much. Good. I was approached by more survivors than I could count, people who'd been where I was, who'd suspected their partners, who'd felt crazy and paranoid and alone. I hired a team to help me respond, to direct people to resources, to support them in leaving dangerous situations. Some of them told me I'd save their lives. I always corrected them. They'd save themselves. I'd just shown them it was possible. David and I talked about having children. It was a conversation that took months because I had to work through my fear that I'd somehow pass on my trauma, that I'd be too paranoid to be a good mother. You know what I think? David said one night. I think any kid would be lucky to have you as a mom. You'd teach them to be smart, to trust their instincts, to never settle for less than they deserve. You really think so? I know so, but only if it's what you want. I'm happy either way. That was David, always making sure my choices were my own, never pushing, never manipulating. We decided to try, and 6 months later, I was pregnant. The day I found out, I sat in our bathroom staring at the positive test, overwhelmed by a wave of emotions I couldn't name: fear, joy, hope, terror, all of it mixing together. I thought about the old Emma, the one who'd died without ever getting this chance. Marcus had told me he wanted kids, but I realized now he'd been lying about that too. He'd never wanted a family with me. He'd just wanted access to my life insurance. This baby growing inside me now was mine and David's. Real, wanted, loved before it even existed. I called my mother crying. I'm going to be a grandmother, she said, her voice filled with wonder. Oh, Emma, your father would have been so happy. My father had died when I was 23, long before Marcus, long before any of this. I wished he could be here to meet his grandchild, but I like to think he knew somehow that wherever he was proud of me for surviving, for fighting back, for choosing a good life after almost losing everything. The pregnancy was smooth. David was attentive without being suffocating, excited without being pushy. He talked to my belly every night, telling our daughter, we found out at 20 weeks, about the life she'd have, the people who loved her, the world waiting for her. And your mom, he'd say, your mom is the strongest person I've ever met. She's going to teach you to be brave and smart and never take shit from anyone. Language, I'd laugh. She can hear you. Good. Never too early to learn. Sophia Michelle Morrison was born on a sunny Tuesday in June, weighing 7 pounds, 3 ounces. She had David's eyes and my nose and lungs that worked just fine, thank you very much. Holding her for the first time, I felt something shift in my chest. A final piece clicking into place. This was what Marcus had tried to take from me. Not just my life, but every moment that would come after. Every joy, every achievement, every love. He'd failed. I'd won. Hey, little one, I whispered. Welcome to the world. We've been waiting for you. My mother came to visit the next day, tears streaming down her face as she held her granddaughter. She's perfect. Emma, She's absolutely perfect. Rachel brought gifts and wine for after I finished nursing and a card that made me cry. To the godmother I hope I'll be, she'd written. You beat death and built a life. Now you've created life. I'm so damn proud of you. Even June sent flowers, with a note that said simply, Congratulations on your happy ending, you earned it. But it wasn't an ending. Not really. It was just the beginning of everything I'd fought for. Sophia was 3 years old when I got the call that Marcus had died in prison. Heart attack, the warden said. Sudden. He'd been in the infirmary when it happened. They'd tried to revive him but couldn't. I thanked him for letting me know and hung up the phone. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no relief, not even curiosity. Marcus Chen had stopped being relevant to my life the moment he went to prison. His death changed nothing. Who was that? David asked, coming into the kitchen. The prison. Marcus is dead. He set down the coffee pot and came to hug me. Are you okay? Yeah, I said, and meant it. I'm fine. Do you need to talk about it? Not really. He's been dead to me for years. This just makes it official. We stood there for a moment, holding each other, while Sophia played with her blocks in the living room, completely oblivious to the conversation. That was the moment I realized Marcus had truly lost. He'd ended up dead and forgotten while I had this, a loving husband, a beautiful daughter, a career I was passionate about, enough money to never worry again. I had everything he'd tried to steal from me and more, and I'd done it all without him. That evening, after Sophia was in bed, I sat down and wrote, not for the blog I kept, not for another book, just for me. A letter to the old Emma, the one who'd drowned in Lake Morrison. Dear Emma, I'm writing this from our home, well, my home now. It's nothing like the house you shared with Marcus. This one is filled with light and laughter and love that's actually real. David is in the shower, singing off key. He does that every night. It used to annoy you with Marcus, remember? But with David, it just makes me smile. Sophia is asleep in her room, dreaming whatever 3-year-olds dream about. Probably unicorns and ice cream. She's smart and funny and so loved. You would have adored her. I want you to know that I did it. I survived. I fought back. I won. Marcus is dead now. Heart attack in prison. I felt nothing when I heard. He stopped mattering a long time. Ego. But you mattered. You matter. Everything I have, everything I've built, I built on the foundation of your life. Your kindness, your trust, your love. Even though they were weaponized against you, they weren't wrong. They weren't weaknesses. Marcus was the weakness. His greed, his cruelty, his complete inability to see what he had until it was gone. I hope, wherever you are, you're at peace. I hope you know that your death wasn't the end. It was a new beginning. I'm living the life you should have had, and I'm living it well. Thank you for being strong enough to trust your instincts when they whispered that something was wrong. Thank you for changing that beneficiary on a paranoid whim. Thank you for giving me the tools I needed to survive. I've got it from here. Love, Emma. I folded the letter carefully and put it in my jewelry box next to my wedding ring from David and a picture of Sophia from her first birthday. Then I went to join my husband in bed where he was reading a veterinary journal and trying to stay awake. Everything okay? He asked, setting down the journal. Everything's perfect, I said, and kissed him. And it was. Years passed. Sophia grew into a confident, curious child who asked a million questions and took absolutely no shit from anyone. She was her mother's daughter in that respect. Mom, she asked one day when she was 7, why don't I have Grandpa Marcus? We'd been waiting for this question. Sophia knew she had Grandma Susan, Grandpa and Grandma Morrison, David's parents, and various aunts, uncles, and cousins. But she'd never asked about my first husband before. David looked at me, letting me take the lead. Grandpa Marcus and I were married a long time ago, I said carefully. But he made some very bad choices, and we're not together anymore. You have Grandpa David's family instead. What kind of bad choices? I glanced at David again. We'd agreed to be honest with Sophia, age appropriately, when the time came. But 7 felt young. He tried to hurt me, I said simply. And when someone hurts you on purpose, you don't keep them in your life. Sophia thought about this seriously. Did he go to jail? Yes. Good. Bad guys should go to jail. She went back to her coloring, the conversation apparently over. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. That went well, David murmured. Give her a few years, she'll have more questions. And she did. At 10, she wanted to know why I wrote a book about it. At 13, she wanted to watch the Netflix series. We said no until she was older. At 15, she read my book without asking permission and came to me with tears in her eyes. Mom, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Thank you, baby. But I'm also really proud of you for fighting back, for not letting him win. I hugged her tight. You know what the best part is? He didn't just lose. I won so completely that I got you. And you're worth more than all the revenge in the world. When Sophia was 16, she came home from school one day looking troubled. What's wrong? I asked. There's this girl in my grade, Jenny. Her mom's boyfriend. I think he's hurting her. Or her mom, or both. She won't talk about it, but she has bruises. And she's always making excuses, and my heart clenched. What do you want to do? I don't know. I told the school counselor, but Jenny denied everything. I'm scared for her, Mom. I pulled her into a hug. You did the right thing telling the counselor. Sometimes people aren't ready to leave yet. But you know what you can do? Be her friend. Be someone safe. So when she is ready, she knows she has somewhere to go. Is that what you wished you had? Before everything? I thought about it. I had Rachel, and she saved my life just by being there and believing me. So, yes, be Jenny's Rachel. And if things get worse, if you see signs that she's in immediate danger, you come to me, okay? Okay. Sophia became friends with Jenny. Not pushy, not invasive, just steady and reliable. And 6 months later, Jenny's mother left her boyfriend and moved into a domestic violence shelter. Sophia came home crying with relief that day. She got out, she said. Her mom got out. Because you were there, I said. Because you paid attention. I'm so proud of you. That was when I knew for certain that surviving Marcus, fighting back, building this life, it had all been worth it. Not just for me, but for the ripple effects. For the people my story helped. For the daughter I'd raised who knew how to recognize danger and how to help. Marcus had tried to end my life. Instead, he'd created a legacy of strength and survival that extended far beyond anything he could have imagined. On my 50th birthday, we threw a big party. David went all out, rented a venue, hired caterers, invited everyone we knew. My mother, now in her 80s and still sharp as a tack. Rachel, a partner at her law firm and happily married to a woman she'd met at one of my speaking events. June, retired but still consulting occasionally. David's entire extended family. Sophia, now 21 and in her 3rd year of college studying social work. People gave speeches. They talked about my book, my advocacy work, my strength. They made me sound like a hero, but standing there, looking at all the people I loved, I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like someone who'd been given an impossible gift, a second chance, and had done her best not to waste it. Speech, someone called out. I shook my head, laughing, but David handed me a microphone anyway. Okay, I said. I'll make this quick. When I was 31 years old, my life almost ended. Someone I trusted, someone I loved, decided I was worth more dead than alive. And for a while, he was right. I did die. The room went quiet. They all knew the story, but hearing me say it out loud still had impact. But somehow, impossibly, I got another chance. And I decided that if I was going to live, I was going to really live. I was going to be brave and messy and honest. I was going to help people. I was going to love hard and choose wisely and never, ever settle for less than I deserved. I looked at David, at Sophia, at my mother and Rachel. And look what I got. Look at this life. Look at all of you. This is what Marcus tried to take from me. This is what I fought for, and I would do it all again in a heartbeat. I raised my glass to second chances, to choosing yourself, to living well as the best revenge. Everyone raised their glasses and drank. Later, after the party wound down and most people had left, I found myself outside on the venue's patio looking up at the stars. Sophia came out and joined me. Good party? I asked. The best. Dad really went all out. He did. We stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Mom, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you ever regret it? The way you handled things with Marcus? Letting him try to kill you instead of just going to the police? I thought about it carefully. No, I said finally. I needed to see it through. I needed to know for certain what he was capable of, and I needed him to commit completely so there was no doubt, no chance he could talk his way out of it. That was really dangerous. It was. But I was careful. I had backup, and I had something he didn't. What? I smiled. I'd already died once. I wasn't afraid anymore. Sophia looked at me strangely. That's a weird way to put it. Is it? I pulled her close. Sometimes we have to die to who we were to become who we're meant to be. Marcus killed the old Emma, the trusting, naive one. But in doing that, he created someone stronger. Someone who fights back. I want to be like that, Sophia said quietly. Strong like you. You already are, baby. You already are. David came out to join us, wrapping his arms around both of us. What are my girls doing out here? Just talking, I said, leaning into him, about how lucky we are. Lucky, he repeated. I don't know if I'd call surviving a murder attempt lucky. I would, I said, because it led me here, to you, to her, to this life. And I wouldn't trade this life for anything. We stood there together, my little family under the stars. And I thought about Marcus, buried in a pauper's grave somewhere, forgotten except as a cautionary tale in my book and the Netflix series. He'd gambled everything on a sure thing that wasn't so sure after all. And I'd won the jackpot he never knew existed. A real life, real love, real happiness. The kind no amount of money could ever buy. The kind you had to survive death to truly appreciate. The kind that made every single moment of that fight worth it. I closed my eyes and sent a thought out into the universe, to the old Emma who'd drowned in Lake Morrison. Thank you for changing that beneficiary. Thank you for trusting your instincts. Thank you for giving me the chance to live the life you deserved. I made it count, I promise. And somewhere in the night, I swear I felt her answer. I know you did. 20 years after Marcus went to prison, 35 years after I first married him, I was invited to give a keynote speech at a national conference on domestic violence prevention. I was 66 years old. Sophia was 40 and had her own therapy practice, specializing in trauma survivors. David and I had just celebrated our 32nd anniversary. My mother had passed peacefully in her sleep at 87, leaving her considerable fortune to Sophia and her foundation. The conference was being held in Chicago in a massive convention center filled with survivors, advocates, lawmakers, and researchers. Thousands of people all working toward the same goal, ending domestic violence. I stood backstage waiting to go on and felt the weight of all those years, all those lives saved, changed, impacted by my choice to fight back, to speak up, to turn my pain into purpose. Ms. Morrison, a young woman approached, maybe 25, with a clipboard and a nervous smile. They're ready for you. I nodded and followed her to the wings of the stage. The moderator was introducing me, listing my accomplishments, telling my story to a room full of people who already knew it. Please welcome Emma Morrison. The applause was thunderous. I walked out onto the stage and the lights were bright enough that I couldn't see the audience clearly. Just a mass of people standing, clapping, some crying. I stood at the podium and waited for the noise to die down. When it finally did, I took a breath and began. I was 31 years old when I realized my husband was going to kill me. You could hear a pin drop, I want to talk to you today, not about him, but about the moment that came right before that realization. The moment when I knew something was wrong, but I talked myself out of it. The moment when my gut screamed danger, but my brain said I was being paranoid. I looked out at the sea of faces. How many of you have been there? Felt that moment? Hundreds of hands went up. That moment is where we have the power to save ourselves. Not later, when the danger is obvious. Not when there's already proof. Right there, in that first instant when something feels off. I told them about the insurance policy, about Rachel's comment that had made me check, about the tiny seed of doubt that had led me to change the beneficiary. I didn't even believe anything was really wrong when I did it. I just thought, better safe than sorry. And that one small action taken on a whim saved my life. I talked about the importance of trusting your instincts, about how abusers bank on us doubting ourselves, on us being reasonable, on us giving them the benefit of the doubt. Stop being reasonable with people who want to hurt you, I said. Stop explaining away the red flags. Stop thinking you're overreacting. Your instincts exist for a reason. Listen to them. I talked about building a support system, about how Rachel and June and my mother had been essential to my survival. You cannot fight an abuser alone. You need people who will believe you, who will help you plan, who will keep you safe. If you're in that situation now, reach out. Tell someone. Ask for help. And then I talked about what came after. Surviving is not the same as living. For a long time after everything happened, I thought my purpose was just to warn other people, to be a cautionary tale. But then I realized something. The best revenge isn't just surviving, it's thriving. I told them about building my career, about finding David, about raising Sophia. I built a life so full of joy and love and purpose that the man who tried to end it became nothing but a footnote. That's the goal, not just to get away, but to build something so beautiful that you look back one day and realize they have no power over you anymore. I paused, emotion catching in my throat. It's been 35 years since I married the man who tried to kill me. And I can stand here today and tell you honestly, he was the best thing that ever happened to me. Shocked silence. I smiled. Not because of who he was, but because of who I became in order to survive him. He thought he was destroying me. Instead, he forged me into steel, and that steel has helped build shelters, change laws, save lives. The applause started again, but I held up my hand. If you're here because someone hurt you, I want you to know something. You're not broken. You're not damaged. You're not weak. You're a survivor, and survival is the first step to building a life beyond your wildest dreams. I looked out at all those faces, all those stories, all that pain and strength and hope. So let's survive. And then let's thrive. Let's build lives so amazing that our abusers become nothing but footnotes in our success stories. Let's turn our pain into purpose and our trauma into triumph. I raised my fist. Let's show them that they didn't break us. They just made us stronger. The applause this time was deafening. People were standing, crying, cheering. I stood there and let it wash over me, feeling the weight and the wonder of it all. After the speech, there was a reception. People came up to me in a steady stream, wanting to shake my hand, share their stories, thank me. One woman, probably in her 50s, came up with tears streaming down her face. I left him, she said. After reading your book, I finally left him. That was 10 years ago, and now I'm remarried, I have grandchildren, I'm happy. I never thought I could be happy again. But you showed me it was possible. I hugged her tight. You did that, not me. You were the one who left. You were the one who rebuilt. I just showed you it could be done. Another woman, younger, nervous. I'm thinking about leaving, but I'm scared. What if he finds me? What if he hurts me? I took her hands. Get help. Contact a domestic violence shelter. Make a safety plan. Don't do it alone. And remember, he's already hurting you. Leaving is scary, but staying is dangerous. On and on it went, each person a testament to the ripple effect of speaking up, of sharing my story, of refusing to let shame and fear win. By the time I got back to my hotel room, I was exhausted but exhilarated. David was already there, having flown in that afternoon to surprise me. "You were amazing," he said, pulling me into his arms. I watched the live stream. Everyone was crying. Good crying or bad crying? Hopeful crying. You gave them hope, Emma. I leaned into him, feeling the solid warmth of him, the safety of 32 years of real love. "You know what's funny?" I said. "Marcus thought he was so smart, thought he had it all figured out. But he never understood the most important thing." "What's that?" "That love is worth more than money. That a good life is worth more than a big insurance payout. That some things can't be measured in dollars." David kissed the top of my head. He was an idiot. Yeah, I agreed. He really was. That night, I had a dream. I was back on Lake Morrison on that boat, watching the sunset. But this time, Marcus wasn't there. Instead, it was David and Sophia and my mother and Rachel and all the people I loved. And instead of going under the water, I was flying above it, weightless and free. I woke up smiling. On my 70th birthday, Sophia threw me a surprise party. She'd flown in people from all over the country, former clients, fellow advocates, people whose lives had been touched by my work. The theme, she told me with a mischievous grin, was living well. The decorations were ridiculous and perfect. Posters with my favorite quotes about revenge and survival, a cake shaped like my book, photos from throughout my life, carefully curated to include only the good parts, the after parts. But the centerpiece was a video she'd made. "Everyone," Sophia called out, getting the party's attention. "I want to show you something." She dimmed the lights and started the video. It opened with Sophia speaking directly to the camera. "My mom taught me that the best revenge is living well. So I asked some people to share what living well means to them." These are all people whose lives were touched by her story. The video cut to a woman I recognized from my speaking circuit. "Living well means I got my PhD. The husband who said I was too stupid to finish high school? I have a doctorate now." Another woman. "Living well means I'm watching my daughter graduate college. He said I'd never amount to anything. She's a doctor." A man. "Living well means I came out. I left my abusive relationship and finally admitted I was gay. I'm married now, happy." On and on it went. Dozens of people, each sharing their victories, each life reclaimed from someone who'd tried to destroy it. And then the video cut to people I knew personally. Rachel. "Living well means I get to practice law with my best friend's daughter as a colleague. Sophia just made partner at our firm. We're unstoppable." "Wait, what?" I looked at Sophia, who was grinning. "Surprise! I'm joining Rachel's firm, starting next month." David appeared on screen next. "Living well means I've spent 36 years with the love of my life. Every day with Emma is a gift. She's my hero." My mother, in old footage from a few years before she died. "Living well means I got to see my daughter not just survive, but thrive. I got to meet my granddaughter. I got to know real joy again after thinking I'd lost everything. Emma did that. She chose life, and she gave me mine back too." And finally, Sophia again. "Living well means I was raised by the strongest woman I know. It means I grew up knowing that no matter what happens, no matter how hard life gets, I can survive it, can thrive. Because I saw my mom do it." The video ended with a montage of photos, me and David on our wedding day, Sophia as a baby, family vacations, book signings, speaking events, graduations, birthdays, all the moments of a life well lived. The last image was text. "Emma Morrison didn't just survive, she conquered. Happy 70th birthday, Mom." I was crying. Everyone was crying. David handed me tissues and wrapped an arm around me. "Happy birthday, love," he whispered. I looked around the room at all these people, all these lives, all this love. And I thought about Marcus, dead for over 25 years now, remembered by no one except as the villain in my story. He'd tried to end this, all of this. And he'd failed so spectacularly that his failure had become the foundation for something beautiful. Thank you, I said to Sophia, to David, to everyone. Thank you for making this life worth fighting for. I'm 75 now. David is 77, retired from his veterinary practice, but still volunteering at the local animal shelter. Sophia is a successful therapist and partner at Rachel's firm, married to a wonderful man who treats her like gold. I have 2 grandchildren who call me Nana and think I'm the coolest person in the world because I wrote a book about catching a bad guy. My advocacy work has slowed down. I still do occasional speaking engagements, still consult on domestic violence policy, but mostly I've stepped back to let younger voices take the lead. I spend my days writing, working on a memoir about aging and resilience, gardening, something I never had time for before, and spoiling my grandchildren absolutely rotten. It's a quiet life, a peaceful life, and I cherish every single moment of it. Sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I think about that other timeline. The one where I died at 31 and never got any of this. That Emma haunts me sometimes, not in a scary way, but in a wistful one. She was so young. She had so much ahead of her that she never got to see. But then I remember, I am her. I'm living the life she would have wanted. Every choice I've made, every moment I've savored, every person I've loved, it's all for both of us. I got to have the second chance, and I made damn sure not to waste it. Last week, a young woman reached out to me through my website. Her name was Emily, and she was 30 years old, married, and starting to suspect her husband of planning something terrible. I found out he increased my life insurance, she wrote, and I've been having these dreams where I'm drowning. I know it sounds crazy, but I feel like I'm supposed to change the beneficiary. Like it's important. Am I being paranoid? I wrote back immediately. Dear Emily, you're not being paranoid, you're being smart. Change the beneficiary, today, right now, then document everything. Find a friend you trust completely, make a plan, and whatever you do, trust your instincts. They're trying to save your life. Here's my phone number. Call me if you need help. I mean it. With love and solidarity, Emma. She called me 2 days later. We talked for 3 hours. I gave her Rachel's contact information, June's successor at the PI firm, the numbers for domestic violence shelters. I walked her through every step of the process I'd gone through 44 years ago. Why are you helping me? She asked. You don't even know me. Because someone helped me, I said simply. And because I know what it's like to feel crazy and scared and alone. You're not alone, Emily. 6 months later, I got a text from an unknown number. He tried, just like you said he would. But I was ready. The Coast Guard pulled me out of the water. He's in custody. The beneficiary had already been changed to my sister. I'm safe. Thank you for saving my life. I showed the text to David, tears streaming down my face. Another one, he asked gently. Another one. He pulled me close. You know, you can't save everyone, right? I know, but I can sure as hell try. That night, I added Emily's text to a folder I keep on my computer. It's full of messages like that, people I've helped over the years, lives I've impacted, deaths I've prevented. Marcus tried to end one life. I've helped save dozens. That's the revenge I never expected but treasure most. Not that I survived, or even that I thrived, but that in trying to destroy me, he inadvertently created something that saves others. Every person who leaves an abusive relationship after reading my book, every woman who trusts her instincts and changes her insurance beneficiary, every life saved because someone heard my story and recognized their own, they're all proof that Marcus Chen failed. Not just failed to kill me, but failed to accomplish anything except making the world safer for the people he would have wanted to stay vulnerable. I sleep well at night knowing that. I'm writing this now at 78 years. Old. My hands shake a little more than they used to, and I need reading glasses for everything, but my mind is still sharp. David and I just celebrated our 45th anniversary. Sophia has been promoted to managing partner at Rachel's firm. My grandchildren are teenagers now, full of fire and opinions and potential. Life is good. Life is sweet. Life is exactly what it should be. I think about Marcus Chen maybe once a year now, usually on the anniversary of my death day, September 15th. Not with anger or fear anymore, but with something like pity. He had everything: a wife who loved him, a comfortable life, potential for real happiness, and he threw it all away for money he never got. I had my life threatened, my trust destroyed, my sense of safety shattered, and I built an empire of survival and strength from the ruins. Who really won? Sometimes I imagine seeing him again in whatever comes after this life. I imagine looking him in the eyes and saying, "Thank you. Thank you for being so predictable I could outwit you. Thank you for being so arrogant you never checked that beneficiary. Thank you for pushing me off that boat because I learned I could swim. Thank you for trying to end my story because the one I wrote instead is so much better than anything you could have imagined. Thank you for teaching me that I'm stronger than I ever knew. And thank you for failing, because in your failure I found my triumph. That's my legacy. Not the book, not the speaking engagements, not even the lives I've helped save. My legacy is that I turned the worst thing that ever happened to me into the best thing I ever did. I survived Marcus Chen. And then I built a life he couldn't even dream of. That's living well. That's the best revenge. And it was worth every single moment of the fight. I'm going to close this story the way I always close my speeches. If you're reading this and you're scared, if you're trapped, if you're being hurt by someone who's supposed to love you, listen to me. You can survive this. You can escape this. You can build a life so beautiful that one day you'll look back and realize they don't matter anymore. Trust your instincts. Make a plan. Get help. And then, when you're ready, run. Run toward the life you deserve. Run toward safety and love and peace. Run toward yourself, the person you were always meant to be. And when you get there, when you're safe and free and thriving, think of me. Think of all the people who made it out. We're waiting for you on the other side. And let me tell you, it's worth the fight every single time.
Thank you, Plants and Books. Thanks, Fanny. Hi, Axuma. Look at all these guys. It's the freaking weekend. Let's go. I love football. And I play, and oh, you can see my hand. That doesn't work. You're having an IRL party, correct? Or are you streaming? I am. It's a party in real life, in person. Yes. I'm in your, Winter Olympic thing. Right. Also, hi, Jan. I'll be watching real football. Football. That one. Where they do it with the bonk and they do it with their pew. Your real life. You're my whole life. P-A-R-T. Wow. But I'll be touching the people. And I'll be sure to touch all of them. As is my wont. Guys, are we chat? Is this real? This is just fantasy. It is the superb owl. Tomorrow, high armpit. Yes. Yeah. I thought I wrote hand egg. I love it too, Nana. Omerta doesn't. But I do, and you do, and that's what matters. Yeah. It's the superb owl.